At 70 years old, David opened an email that would destroy everything he thought he knew about his life. The DNA test he'd taken on a whim, just curious about his ancestry, had just revealed something impossible. The people who raised him, who he called mom and dad for 7 decades, weren't related to him at all. Not even distantly, not even a little bit. And that one sentence on a screen? It was about to unravel a 70-year-old crime that someone thought they'd gotten away with. Picture this. You're 70 years old. You've lived your entire life with complete certainty about who you are. Your family history has been told the same way every Thanksgiving. The photos in the albums arranged just so. The stories repeated until they felt carved in stone. David had never questioned any of it. Why would he? There were no secrets, at least none he could see. His parents, Robert and Patricia Morrison, had passed away years ago. Good people, loving people, the kind of parents anyone would be grateful for. So when his daughter bought him that DNA test kit for Christmas, it seemed harmless, a fun little project. Maybe he'd discover he was part Irish, part Italian. Maybe there'd be some distant cousins to connect with. He swabbed his cheek, mailed it off, and forgot about it. 2 weeks later, everything changed. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. Your DNA results are ready. David clicked the link expecting pie charts and percentages. What he got instead made his coffee go cold in his hand. 0 DNA match with Robert Morrison. 0 DNA match with Patricia Morrison. At first, his brain did what brains do when confronted with the impossible. It rejected it. Must be a mistake, he muttered, refreshing the page. These tests fail all the time. But the page didn't change, and there was something else, something that made his chest tighten. One match stood out, too close to ignore, a relationship marker that read close family, first cousin or closer. A woman named Rita Castellano, age 73. David stared at the name. He'd never heard it before in his life. But here's where it gets strange. Because the shared DNA markers weren't just close, they were immediate family close, the kind of connection that doesn't happen by accident. David did what anyone would do. He sent Rita a message through the DNA platform. "Hi, I think there might be an error with my results. Do we know each other?" Her response came within an hour. "There's no error. I've been looking for you for 40 years. Read that again. I've been looking for you for 40 years. David's hands started shaking. He called his daughter Sarah and told her everything. Together, they started digging, and what they found made the DNA tests look like the easy part. David requested his birth certificate from the county records office. What arrived was thin, incomplete, important pages missing. The dates didn't quite align. The hospital listed on the document? Mercy General Hospital. But when Sarah tried to call them, she got a recorded message. This number is no longer in service. Mercy General had closed in 1992, quietly, with very little fanfare. The building had been demolished years later, leaving behind nothing but a vacant lot and unanswered questions. Sarah's a lawyer. She knows how to find things people don't want found. She started searching newspaper archives, local libraries, microfilm records from 1954, the year David was born. And then she found it. A tiny article, page 6 of the local paper, October 18, 1954. Infant disappears from Mercy General Hospital. The article was short, almost dismissive in tone. It reported that a baby boy had gone missing from the maternity ward. The hospital claimed it was a clerical error, that records had been misplaced, that the situation would be resolved shortly. But there was one detail that made David's blood run cold. The baby's mother was named Diane Castellano. Castellano, the same last name as Rita, the DNA match. What happened next shocked everyone, because when David and Sarah kept digging, they discovered something the hospital never wanted anyone to find. Diane Castellano gave birth to a healthy baby boy on October 15, 1954. She held him for 2 hours, counted his fingers, kissed his forehead, named him Thomas. When she woke up the next morning, a nurse told her there had been complications, that the baby needed special care, that she'd see him soon. She never saw him again. The hospital told her different stories. First, it was complications, then it was a transfer to another facility. Then, weeks later, they claimed there had been a mix-up with the paperwork, that they were investigating. Diane filed police reports, she demanded answers. She showed up at the hospital every single day for 3 months. The hospital eventually told her that without proper documentation, there was nothing they could do. The baby was gone, the records were lost, and maybe, just maybe, she should accept that and move on. But Diane Castellano didn't move on. For 43 years, until her death in 1997, she searched for her son. She hired private investigators, she contacted every adoption agency in the state. She kept a bedroom in her house exactly as it was the day she brought Thomas home, a nursery that waited 70 years for a baby who never came. And here's the part that'll make you angry. Because while Diane was searching, David was living 20 miles away, same county, same city, right there. Rita Castellano, the DNA match, was Diane's daughter, David's biological sister. When David finally called her, she cried so hard she couldn't speak for 5 minutes. "I promised Mom I'd find you," Rita said when she could finally talk. "She died believing you were out there somewhere. She never gave up." Rita continued the search after their mother's death. She submitted DNA to every database, checked records, followed leads that went nowhere. And then, 27 years after Diane's death, a notification appeared on her screen. Close DNA match found. Rita told David everything. She sent him photos, pictures of Diane holding a baby in a hospital bed. The baby was wrapped in a blue blanket. The photo was dated October 15, 1954. David stared at that photo for an hour. He was looking at himself. For the first time in his life, he was seeing the moment he was born, but the woman holding him wasn't Patricia Morrison. It was a stranger who'd spent her entire life searching for him. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, because the story gets even darker. Sarah kept digging, and what she uncovered changed everything. Mercy General Hospital had a secret that wasn't just about David. Between 1952 and 1968, at least 17 babies disappeared from that hospital. 17 families were told stories about complications, transfers, and lost paperwork. 17 mothers went home empty-handed. And here's what nobody knew until Sarah found the records. Those babies didn't disappear. They were placed with families who couldn't adopt through legal channels, families who paid cash, families who asked no questions. It wasn't a clerical error, it was an operation, an illegal adoption ring run by hospital staff who saw vulnerable mothers, young, unmarried, poor, as opportunities. Diane Castellano, David's biological mother, was 19 years old, unmarried, Italian immigrant family, no money, no power, the perfect target. Robert and Patricia Morrison, they'd been trying to adopt for years. They were told the process was too slow, too complicated, but a hospital administrator knew someone who could help for a price. They paid $5,000 in 1954. That's about $58,000 today. And just like that, they had a son. David Morrison, originally Thomas Castellano, was handed over 3 days after his birth. New birth certificate, new identity, new life. The people who did this, most of them died decades ago. The hospital destroyed records when it closed. The statute of limitations expired long before anyone knew what had happened. There was no one left to hold accountable, just the truth and the wreckage it left behind. David met Rita 6 weeks after that first message. She brought a box with her. Inside were things their mother had saved: a hospital bracelet with Baby Boy Castellano written in faded ink, a photo album filled with empty pages and handwritten notes when Thomas comes home. They sat in Rita's living room and cried together, not just for what was lost, but for what could never be recovered. 70 years of birthdays, holidays, ordinary moments. A mother who died without knowing her son had lived a good life 20 miles away. David couldn't undo what happened. He couldn't restore his mother's lost years or erase the grief that consumed her. He couldn't even feel angry at Robert and Patricia Morrison because he genuinely believed they didn't know. They'd been told it was a legal adoption. They'd loved him completely. But here's what he could do. He could choose what happened next. David took the name Thomas for the first time in 70 years, not as a replacement, but as an addition. He started signing documents David Thomas Morrison Castellano. He met cousins he never knew existed. He learned about his Italian heritage. He visited his mother's grave and stood there for an hour, telling her everything she'd missed. And slowly, painfully, He started to heal. Because healing doesn't come from fixing the past, it comes from finally understanding it. At 70 years old, David didn't gain a new life. He gained the truth. And in that truth, something quietly profound happened. He didn't lose himself. He found himself. Even late, even after everything, the truth still came home. What would you do if you discovered your entire identity was a lie? Let me know in the comments.